And it's on that point about appellate jurisdiction, since it's 95% of the caseload, that we're most interested in. And I've indicated there as well another little bit of numerical information, quantitative information, that of the 95% of the caseload that falls under its appellate jurisdiction, 65% of that originates in the federal courts, and 35% originates in the state courts. So, for example, the Supreme Court of the United States might review a case. Let's say you have a case that begins in the state of Texas, like Lawrence and Garner versus Texas, which we've visited and revisited several times this semester, right? Including most recently in the last class meeting, right? That case involved a law of the state of Texas, which made it a crime to engage in acts of homosexual sodomy, and it involved the local police in the Houston, Texas, Harris County, I think Harris County Sheriff's deputies, right? And the accused were put on trial in state court and convicted, and then you go up the appellate process in the Texas court system, and you get to the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, and it hands down its decision, and then from the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, it was appealed to the United States Supreme Court. Okay? So lots and lots of cases, not the majority of them, but certainly not a small percentage of the cases follow that state route. Okay, so when I said a couple of minutes ago that basically the Supreme Court can exercise appellate jurisdiction that arises under any case arising under the law of the United States, that's what I meant. Whether it's a case that originates in federal court or state court. Now, there are several routes that a case can come to the Supreme Court on appeal, but the primary route is through the writ of certiorari. Okay? This word writ, W-R-I-T, means a court order. We have all different kinds of writs in our legal system. Writs of error, writs of mandamus, etc. A writ of certiorari, that word certiorari suggests the type that we're interested in here, is an order from a higher court to a lower court, in the application that we're talking about here, an order from the Supreme Court of the United States to a lower court to send up the records of a case for review. Okay? So the primary route that a case comes before the Supreme Court on appeal is through the writ of certiorari. And it's important to note that it only takes 4 justices to issue the writ of certiorari. And that's significant because when the court is fully, when you have a full complement of justices on the Supreme Court, how many do we have in total? 9, right? Okay, that's not determined by the Constitution, that's set by Congress. But for many decades now, it's been 9, okay? So the rule of 4 then means that a minority of justices can determine that the court's going to hear a case. Okay? Now, believe it or not, one of the most studied questions as it pertains to the operation of the Supreme Court of the United States, scholars have been studying for many years, is the question of, how does the court decide to hear one case and not another? Do the authors of your textbook give you an indication? I honestly just can't remember. What percentage of cases in which appeals are filed does the court actually decide to review the case? Do they give you a number indicating how many appeals are filed to the Supreme Court every session? It depends on what source material you're looking at. I've seen a range of numbers. I've seen as low as about 8,000, but as high as maybe 10,000 or more. Does that number ring a bell for any of you? Did the authors of the textbook mention that to you? Well, let's just say it's somewhere between 8,000 and 10,000 appeals that are filed. What percentage of those does the Supreme Court actually decide to review? What percentage of those appeals does the Supreme Court actually hear? where they actually issued the written certiorari. Did I give you that number? Well, if you don't remember, just take a guess. Anybody want to take a guess? Okay. It's less than 20, less than 1%, right? So the numbers that, again, it just depends on the source material that you're looking at. But most of the sources that I've seen indicate that the court reviews about 80 cases a year on appeal, right? So, that's a very, very small percentage of the cases. Most appeals that are filed don't get reviewed by the court, and perhaps the explanation for that's not too hard to understand. I mean, they only have 9 justices, and they do have clerks to help them process their workload. But there's only so much time on the calendar. This isn't like a lot of processes that can be streamlined or something like that. The court, obviously, decides to hear a case is going to devote due time and diligence to the consideration of that case, right? So there's only so many cases that they can hear, and as I say, just depending on the source material that you're looking at, it can differ, but somewhere maybe around 80 or